Hey everyone, today we're diving into a truly incredible story about Jasper Lane, a guy who completely defied the odds after facing a near-fatal motorcycle accident. This didn't just change his life, it brought him a vital message for all of us. It all went down in the beautiful Blue Ridge Highlands, and what Jasper experienced beyond this life is truly astonishing, especially what he learned about the end of October. Before we jump into this wild experience, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to our channel, and turn on the notifications so you never miss out on content like this. You're in for an intense ride. So my name's Jasper Lane, and I feel a strong urge to share a moment in my life that shifted everything for me. Flashback to 2008, I was cruising through the Blue Ridge Highlands, expecting just another day of peaceful riding. The sun was shining, the air was fresh, and I was soaking in that beautiful freedom that you can only get on two wheels. Little did I know, in just seconds, my whole world was about to flip upside down. It's been 16 years since that terrifying day, but honestly, it feels like just yesterday. The lessons I learned are crystal clear. Today, I'm not just recounting a tale of survival. I'm here to share the profound spiritual truths I encountered along the way. My brush with death took me to realms beyond my comprehension, forcing me to reevaluate everything I thought I understood about faith and existence. As I reveal the details of this life-altering experience, I invite you to open your heart and mind. What you're about to hear might shake the very foundations of some of your beliefs, but my hope is that it sparks reflection and provides new insights into the essence of our lives. That unforgettable summer day in 2008 was beautiful. The sky was an endless blue, and as I navigated those winding roads in the Blue Ridge Highlands, I was blissfully unaware of how close I was to a near end. The day was absolutely perfect for a motorcycle ride, and I felt a wonderful connection with my bike and the beautiful landscape surrounding me. As I navigated a tight turn at a comfortable 30 miles per hour, the sun was shining brightly, casting playful shadows from the trees along the roadside. Everything felt great until, in an instant, everything changed. Out of nowhere, a truck appeared coming towards me from the opposite direction. The driver seemed to lose control, likely caught off guard by the curve. He swerved abruptly to avoid crashing into me, but that frantic move had serious consequences. As the back of the truck jolted, bales of hay tumbled onto the road, directly in my path. The entire scene unfolded so quickly that I had barely any time to react. My motorcycle struck one of the fallen bales with a violent impact, and in an instant, I found myself losing all control. The force tossed me off the bike as if I were a lifeless doll. I flew through the air for what felt like an eternity, experiencing that brief sensation of weightlessness. Then, with a horrifying crash, I slammed into a tree. The agony shot through me immediately, as if every bone was being crushed at once. But the ordeal didn't stop there. The initial collision ricocheted me off, sending my body tumbling another 25 meters across rough terrain and dense underbrush. Each roll and crash brought a fresh wave of excruciating pain. Finally, I came to a halt at the bottom of a steep embankment, hidden from view of the road. The pain was so intense that it took my breath away. I knew, in that moment, that I was on the brink of death. My body felt shattered, and I could taste blood in my mouth. I tried moving, but any attempt only resulted in agonizing suffering. I was trapped within my own broken body, completely unable to call for help. Fear engulfed me. Alone and gravely injured, I realized with chilling clarity that I could die in that lonely ravine, far away from all those I cared about. The truth of my own mortality had never hit me so hard or felt so terrifying. As I clung to consciousness, the weight of my situation pressed down on me. In the chaos of that moment, my mind was caught in a bizarre dance between clarity and confusion. It was like watching a fast-paced film of my life unfold. Flashes of joyful laughter, painful goodbyes, felt opportunities slipping away, and dreams just out of reach. Everything collided around me as I lay there, trapped in agony. But then, amidst the despair, something remarkable happened that would shift my perspective on life and death forever. As I lay still, engulfed by pain, a strange presence materialized beside me. At first, I assumed it might be someone who had witnessed the accident and rushed to help. But when I finally managed to focus my eyes, I was met with an image that seemed to defy reality. An elderly woman stood next to me, appearing so effortlessly that it was as if she had emerged from nowhere. Her serene face, framed by soft white hair, radiated a sense of peace. With dark-rimmed glasses similar to those my grandmother wore, she donned a dress that looked like it belonged to the 60s, adorned with gentle floral patterns and pastel shades. What struck me the most was her tranquility. While I lay broken and bloody at the bottom of a ravine, she exuded calmness. Her eyes, glimmering with genuine compassion, spoke volumes without a single word being uttered. It was an odd comfort that enveloped me, as though her presence absorbed all my pain, fear, and anguish, replacing it with a serene calm I had never known. I opened my mouth to ask her name or plead for assistance, but no sound came out. Yet instead of panic, a wave of comfort washed over me, making my worries feel trivial. As I focused on her, it was as if time had come to a standstill. My pain was still present, but it felt distant, like it belonged to someone else entirely. My mind, once clouded with fear, experienced an unexpected clarity, oddly calm in the moment. I couldn't tell you how long we sat there together, me on the cold ground, her by my side in this silent connection. Was it minutes? Hours? It felt as if time no longer held any significance. Then, just as mysteriously as she had arrived, she vanished. One moment she was there, and the next, she was gone. It was then that I began to hear the distant sounds of sirens, the rescue teams making their way toward me. I was in a whirlwind of chaos and confusion, the aftermath of the accident crashing around me. Just before everything became a blur, a woman appeared, like an angel, offering me a comforting presence. It felt as if she had fulfilled her purpose by soothing my fears and was now walking away, assured that help was on its way. The calm she imparted lingered, even as the weight of my predicament pressed down on me again. When the paramedics arrived and began their critical work, that reassuring aura from the woman remained with me. Honestly, I had no clue who she was or what had brought her there, but I felt certain of one thing. This wasn't some trick of my mind brought on by pain or shock. It was genuine, as tangible as the accident that nearly took my life. That realization gave me a flicker of strength to brace myself for what lay ahead. In the days that followed, everything turned into a haze of medications, pain, and an endless stream of medical procedures. When I finally emerged from the fog of unconsciousness, I found myself in a hospital room, a stark reality surrounded by beeping machines and tangled tubes. The unmistakable scent of disinfectant filled the air, a constant reminder of my injuries and the ordeal I had just encountered. The doctors laid it all out for me. The extent of my injuries nearly left me reeling. Multiple fractures in both my arms and legs, shattered ribs, a broken collarbone, and significant spinal damage. The internal bleeding was severe. I'd lost around 4 liters of blood, almost the entirety of what an adult carries. It truly was a miracle I made it to the hospital. The first few weeks turned into a blur of surgeries. I was wheeled into the operating room more times than I could count, each procedure a desperate fight to mend what had been broken. Talented surgeons worked around the clock, focused on fixing my shattered bones, halting the bleeding, and trying to prevent lasting harm to my organs. Pain clung to me like a shadow. Even with the strongest painkillers, I felt engulfed in flames. There were moments so excruciating, I found myself wishing I could just slip into oblivion. The line between life and death was hauntingly fragile, and I often questioned whether I had the will to continue the fight. The staff, doctors and nurses alike, were incredibly committed, but I noticed the anxiety etched on their faces. My situation veered toward precarious, and there were times they feared the worst might come for me before dawn. Each morning I was able to wake up felt like a small victory, though I was overwhelmed by weakness. The substantial blood loss had left me utterly drained, struggling to regain my strength amid the ongoing battle for survival. Even the smallest tasks felt monumental. Just raising my head or wriggling a finger took so much effort. It was like being stuck in a body that didn't want to listen to me. Whenever I managed to wake up and had a moment of clarity, my thoughts often drifted back to the crash site. I remembered that elderly woman. Her presence brought a strange kind of peace that felt like a lifeline amid all the pain and despair I was going through. Clinging to that memory became my way of holding on to my sanity during those tough times. My family's visits were brief, yet heavily laden with emotion. I could see sadness and fear in their eyes, but there was also a flicker of fragile hope. They tried to stay strong for my sake, but it was obvious they were grappling with their own fears, just like I was. Watching the toll my condition took on them hurt almost as much as my physical pain. Days melted into weeks, and slowly my health began to stabilize. Doctors tossed around terms like progress, but each small improvement felt weighed down by fresh challenges. The daunting prospect of a lengthy recovery loomed over me, making me wonder if I would ever feel whole again. During my time in the hospital, I floated between wakefulness and oblivion, oscillating between hope and despair. It was in this limbo that I started to experience things that transcended the physical realm. The visions were striking and vivid, so much so that I began to question if they were simple hallucinations induced by medication. With my eyes wide open and lying in that hospital bed, strange figures danced around the room, beings, or what I sensed to be souls, floating freely. Some radiated calm and comfort, providing solace amidst my suffering. Others, though, were shrouded in darkness, appearing tormented and lost. Instead of fear, these visions sparked a deep sense of compassion in me, making my heart ache for their plight. As I lay there, I could almost touch the heaviness of her pain, the bewilderment, and the sorrow she was going through. It struck me as remarkable, this sensation that I was peering through a doorway to a dimension beyond our regular physical existence. Being close to such a fragile state of life felt like it offered me a glimpse into a hidden reality, a perspective usually obscured from us. I felt like I had been given a rare opportunity to witness something extraordinary, something that stretched the boundaries of belief and reason. There were instances when it seemed as if I could separate from my body. It was an odd feeling, hovering above the bed, my gaze fixed on my own injured self. In those brief moments, pain vanished, replaced with a sense of liberation and lightness I'd never known before. During these surreal, out-of-body experiences, I could observe the medical staff bustling in and out, discussing matters, monitoring machines, and adjusting devices. What blew my mind was that sometimes I could hear their conversations even when they were far down the hall, well beyond what I usually could hear. It felt as though my senses had transformed, soaring beyond the physical restrictions imposed by my battered body. But then there were times when my journeys transported me well beyond the hospital's walls. I found myself gliding through radiant tunnels, emerging into breathtaking realms filled with indescribable beauty. I saw landscapes bursting with colors that seemed to defy the normal spectrum. The immense feeling of tranquility and unconditional love enveloped me in those spaces, almost overwhelming. Yet not every vision was filled with light and warmth. A few times I was plunged into dark, suffocating voids, bleak, barren places where anguish and regret appeared to reign supreme. In those moments, a profound grief washed over me. It extended not only to my own plight, but also for all the souls that felt ensnared in those agonizing realms. What fascinated me the most during these episodes was the sense of being tapped into a vast ocean of wisdom. Insights and knowledge that surpassed any formal education seemed to pour into my consciousness. It felt as if I had, if only briefly, accessed a cosmic library filled with the answers to life's profound questions and truths about our existence. When those transcendent experiences faded and I returned to the stark reality of my hospital bed, I was left with an overwhelming sense of nostalgia. It felt as though I was suddenly yanked out of a serene moment of clarity and tossed back into the chaotic, heavy reality of the physical world. This shift was often jarring and left me feeling a bit lost. When I attempted to share these experiences with doctors and nurses, they commonly chalked it up to the powerful medications I was taking or the immense stress my body had endured. But honestly, that didn't sit right with me. The vivid clarity and depth of these visions were far too intense to be dismissed as mere hallucinations or fevered dreams. As my health started to improve, these extraordinary experiences faded a bit. Yet, their influence left a lasting mark on me, sparking a growing curiosity and a quest for spiritual understanding that would flourish in the years ahead. Reflecting on it now, it strikes me that those near-death moments became pivotal in my journey. They not only bolstered my resolve to recover physically, but they also unveiled a broader spectrum of reality, something I had never even thought to consider before. The feelings and visions I encountered in that liminal space between life and death laid the groundwork for a deep personal and spiritual evolution. It wasn't until 6 long months into my recovery that I finally pieced together the identity of the mysterious older woman who had shown herself to me during the accident's aftermath. It happened on a random morning while I was sitting in my wheelchair, staring out of the rehab center window. Suddenly, as if a curtain had been lifted from my mind, it hit me. She was not a stranger or some random guardian angel. This woman, with her white hair and dark-framed glasses, was actually my former Sunday school teacher from the Good News Bible Club back in 1966 when I was just a young kid of 10. That realization washed over me like a wave. I could clearly recall those Sunday classes, the aroma of old books mingling with crayons in that little church room. Mrs. Thompson, that's who it was, always had a warm smile and encouraging words for all of us. But the astonishing part of this revelation was that Mrs. Thompson had actually died years prior to my accident. I had a faint recollection of hearing about her passing while I was in high school, possibly in the late 70s. The certainty that it was truly her who visited me in that critical moment was undeniable. It hit me all at once. This woman, with her familiar glasses and the way her hair was styled, looked just like someone from my childhood. Her dress even reminded me of days long gone. A mix of emotions surged through me. On the one hand, there was a warm comfort in realizing she wasn't just some random stranger. She was someone who had greatly influenced my early spiritual journey. However, I couldn't shake the eerie feeling that this was the spirit of someone who had left this earth many years ago. It made me pause and think about what her visit truly meant. Why was Jasper Lane part of my life now? Why had she come to offer solace when I needed it most? I recalled her lessons about faith, hope, and the overwhelming love of God. Was her appearance an indication of these values I had absorbed? The more I reflected, the more convinced I became that it wasn't merely a figment of my imagination. It was not just some mental distraction caused by my injuries. The peace she instilled in me and the renewed strength to persevere felt both real and significant. It was as if she had been sent as a guardian angel, bridging the gap between this life and whatever comes next. In the days after this realization, I found myself deep in thought about my early years, recollecting the teachings from Bible Club and considering how they subtly shaped my path, often without me even realizing it. Mrs. Lane, once a dim memory tucked away, suddenly became a vital part of my spiritual journey. I tried to talk about it with my family and a few close friends, but explaining this experience proved challenging. To many, it seemed simpler to dismiss it as mere coincidence or an odd quirk of memory. Yet, within my heart, I knew what had happened was profound. This encounter marked a turning point in my healing process. The belief that there was more to life than what we see and that the universe sends positive energy our way, especially in our toughest times, transformed my outlook. The memory of Mrs. Lane and her presence when I was suffering became a symbol of hope, a spiritual lifeline I could grasp during moments of uncertainty or hopelessness. Even if her appearance was fleeting, its impact on my recovery was undeniable. The journey of healing and spiritual discovery was truly transformative for me. Reflecting back, I can't help but remember an elderly woman who played a pivotal role in my life. Actually, she was my cherished childhood teacher. Her influence planted a seed of faith within me, one that transcended traditional religious boundaries and connected me to something far deeper and more universal. As I navigated through recovery, I was surprised to find that the spiritual experiences I encountered during my most critical hospital moments did not fade away. Instead, they grew even more profound. There was this sensation, almost tangible, that the barrier between our world and something beyond was becoming increasingly fragile. It's hard to describe, but it felt as though I could almost step into different dimensions. During this period, I had some remarkable experiences that I can only liken to out-of-body journeys. In those instances, I felt a complete detachment from the physical restraints that still bound me to the hospital bed, or at times, a wheelchair. I experienced a sense of boundless freedom. It was as though my consciousness was free to roam far beyond my injured body. On these spiritual adventures, I was transported to breathtaking realms. I remember vibrant landscapes filled with colors that seemed to pulsate with their own light, fields of flowers alive with energy, towering mountains that appeared to brush against infinity, and expanses of cosmic energy flowing beautifully. It was like stepping outside of time itself, a realm where the ordinary rules of existence no longer applied. However, not every vision was one of light and joy. I also encountered some starkly dark and unsettling experiences. One vividly sticks with me, a vast expanse of blackness, akin to a cosmic vacuum. Floating within this dark realm was a gigantic black cube, and within it I sensed the presence of many souls. They felt like they were ensnared, enduring a silent torment, almost as if they were serving an unimaginable cosmic sentence. Witnessing these trapped spirits enveloped me in an overwhelming sadness. I could almost feel their anguish, regret, and despair, as if they were caught in a stasis, unable to progress in their spiritual paths. These haunting visions compelled me to reevaluate everything I thought I knew about concepts like heaven and hell, and the ideas of reward and punishment beyond this life. They left me pondering the complexity of existence and what truly lies after death. I often found myself surrounded by radiant beings during these visions, entities I couldn't quite put into human terms. They felt like guides or messengers, but instead of using words, they communicated in a way that connected directly with my mind, sharing insights and truths that were beyond my everyday understanding. One particular encounter left a profound impression on me. It was a revelation that truly shook me to my core. These light beings unveiled visions of what's to come, specifically focused on events expected at the end of October this year. The scenes were intense. I witnessed massive earthquakes, eruptions from great volcanoes, and tsunamis that threatened to engulf entire coastal areas. It became clear to me that the recent hurricane that devastated the east coast of the United States was just the tip of the iceberg, the beginning of a far more significant series of disasters that would challenge humanity like never before. What they showed me wasn't just doom, it was part of a much larger shift in our planet, like an intense cleansing and renewal of Earth itself. I started to understand that these catastrophic events weren't punishments. Instead, they were integral to a process of transformation. With these messages came a heavy sense of urgency and a feeling of responsibility. I felt a calling to convey what I had learned, to help prepare others not just for the physical struggles ahead, but also for the accompanying spiritual shifts. As my experiences grew, I noticed some significant changes in myself. My awareness sharpened. I began to feel the emotions of those around me almost as if they were my own. It was as if I had developed a new sensitivity to energies that I had previously ignored completely. Although it was sometimes overwhelming, this newfound ability changed how I saw the world. I started to perceive existence not as a mere collection of individuals going about their lives, but as a vast, intricate web of energy and consciousness. Every thought and action resonated far beyond what was immediately apparent. The revelations I encountered throughout my recovery not only altered my grasp of the spiritual realm, but also ignited a fresh sense of purpose within me. Surviving my accident was not a mere fluke. There was a reason behind it. Now I felt driven to share my insights and assist others in preparing for the changes ahead. Reflecting on the shifts that lay ahead, I couldn't help but feel a sense of optimism amid the hurdles that awaited me. As I worked on healing physically and delving into my spiritual side, I found myself lost in deep thoughts about faith and spirituality. The near-death experience and the visions that followed truly turned my perception of the divine upside down. Before everything changed, I thought of myself as a conventional religious person. I regularly went to church, engaged in Bible study, and did my best to adhere to the principles of my faith. My belief system felt solid, but honestly, it was quite narrow, limited to just one religious framework. However, after my intense experiences, I began to question the boundaries of organized religions in a way I'd never imagined. It's not that my faith diminished. In fact, it became more powerful than before. I realized that authentic spirituality and a real connection to the divine reached far beyond the confines of any specific dogma or institution. Churches, mosques, and temples, with their strict structures and unyielding doctrines, sometimes stifled the spiritual journey instead of enhancing it. The insights I witnessed during those visions extended much further than any particular sacred publications or teachings. They hinted at a universal truth, a bond that goes beyond beliefs, cultures, and nationalities. This epiphany didn't mean I turned my back on my religious upbringing. Quite the opposite, actually. I started to revisit the teachings from my youth with fresh eyes. The stories and parables I once understood literally transformed into deeper metaphors and spiritual lessons. I began to see that many diverse faiths were ultimately pointing to the same fundamental truths, albeit with different words and symbols. One of the most eye-opening realizations I had was about the personal nature of spirituality. I came to understand that a genuine relationship with the divine is deeply personal and intimate. It isn't something that a priest or an institution can define for you. Instead, it's a personal quest that each individual must embark upon alone. Initially, I thought of organized religions as endpoints on a spiritual journey, but over time, my perspective shifted. I began to view them more like starting points, guiding us at the very beginning. It dawned on me that, much like a map isn't the actual terrain, religious doctrines were just imperfect reflections of a far richer and intricate reality. This revelation nudged me toward a more open and varied approach to spirituality. As I explored various religious and philosophical paths, I found beauty and insight in places I would have previously overlooked or dismissed. Practices like meditation, once met with my skepticism, gradually became essential to my spiritual practice. I also grew to appreciate the significance of symbolism and ritual. Instead of seeing these as ultimate goals, I recognized them as valuable tools that could enhance our spiritual experiences, allowing us to connect with something far beyond ourselves. This change in perspective freed me from rigid interpretations. One of the biggest shifts in my beliefs concerned my understanding of God. The entity I encountered during my visions defied traditional notions of divinity. I no longer envisioned a being on a heavenly throne. Instead, I experienced a universal consciousness that infused all of existence. This new understanding led me to perceive the divine as something intrinsic to us rather than an external force. These insights profoundly influenced how I viewed morality and ethics. The notion of sin as violating a distant God lost its grip on me. Instead, I embraced a more holistic view of ethics, grounded in the interconnectedness of all living things. I started considering our actions not as mere compliance with rules, but in terms of their effects on the collective tapestry we're all part of. My attitude toward other faiths also underwent a transformation. Rather than focusing on differences and conflicts, I began to see various beliefs as different reflections of a shared spiritual journey. I developed a deep respect for all traditions, recognizing them as diverse expressions of the same underlying truth. Facing a new perspective in life was definitely a tough ride for me. A lot of my old friends from church struggled to grasp or accept my shift in beliefs. Some thought I had turned my back on my faith, while others were worried I had fallen into a trap laid by dark forces. It hurt to see their reactions, but I got where they were coming from. Honestly, I would have felt the same way not too long ago. Even with these hurdles, embracing this fresh understanding of spirituality granted me a peace and joy I had never experienced before. I found myself feeling intricately linked, not just to something divine, but to everyone around me and the world itself. The dread of death that once loomed over me has faded, making way for a comforting acceptance of life's natural rhythm. Now I view my spiritual path as an ever-evolving journey filled with discoveries and personal growth. I don't claim to know all the answers, nor do I aim to. Still, there's a profound assurance within me that existence holds mysteries beyond what we can see or think, and this belief empowers me to tackle life's difficulties and to share my experiences with those around me. Looking back, the toughest battle of all was my physical recovery after the accident. Let me tell you, the extent of the damage was severe, and for several months, pain was my constant companion. No escape. Some days, just taking a breath felt like climbing a mountain, and the idea of walking again seemed utterly unrealistic. The doctors did their utmost, but it was clear they were just as shocked as I was that I had made it through. One surgery after another was lined up, each aimed at mending a different part of my shattered body. Daily physiotherapy felt like a relentless grind, filled with discomfort where even the tiniest progress demanded every ounce of effort I had. During those dark days, there were moments when despair took hold. The physical agony was unbearable, but the emotional toll was equally heavy. I often questioned if I would ever return to a normal way of life, if I would be able to walk, work, or enjoy the little things I used to take so lightly. Then, during one particularly bleak Sunday afternoon, something remarkable happened. I was lost in my heavy thoughts in my hospital room when a nurse walked in. She was with a man who introduced himself as the hospital chaplain. He kindly asked if I would like to. I found myself in a situation where someone offered to pray for me. At first, I hesitated. It felt a bit odd, but I agreed out of courtesy. The chaplain's voice was soothing as he began his prayer, softly filling the space around us. Then something remarkable happened. A wave of intense warmth surged through me, starting at my lower back and quickly spreading throughout my entire body. It was an unusual sensation, yet strangely comforting. In that moment, I was struck by a vivid vision. I pictured myself bathed in a radiant golden light. This glow seemed to seep into every bit of me, mending, healing, and revitalizing. I could feel my bones shifting back into place, my tissues rejuvenating, and energy flooding back into my fatigued frame. When I finally opened my eyes after this experience, I was met with an astonishing realization. The persistent pain that had been my constant shadow for months had vanished. It was as if I had been reawakened. A refreshing, invigorating feeling swept over me that I hadn't known since before my accident. Caught in a moment of sheer inspiration, I did something I hadn't imagined I could do just moments earlier. I sat up in bed, all on my own. The chaplain and the nurse exchanged glances of pure disbelief, just as I felt inside. I could barely wrap my head around what had just occurred either. As days passed, my medical team was left scratching their heads, mystified by my sudden transformation. Tests revealed that several injuries, once thought to be irreversible, had healed in ways that simply baffled them. What had been projected as a years-long recovery journey now seemed achievable in just months. This experience marked a significant shift, not just in my physical recovery, but also in my spiritual path. It served as undeniable evidence that there are greater forces at play, forces that genuinely care for us. It reinforced my understanding that healing, whether on a physical, emotional, or spiritual level, can arrive in the most unexpected and remarkable ways. This miracle deepened my faith in a way I could never have anticipated, far surpassing anything I had learned from sermons or sacred scriptures. Suddenly, it wasn't about believing in some distant abstraction. I had felt the divine presence firsthand. Alongside this uplifting realization came a profound sense of humility and gratitude. I couldn't help but ponder why I had received such an extraordinary blessing when countless others continued to face their struggles. You know, I've often found myself contemplating the intricate and bewildering nature of life, and it struck me that the journey I experienced could offer hope to others. It all began after a pivotal moment that sparked my recovery. Each passing day seemed to bring a new layer of progress, pushing me forward with determination. What's remarkable is that through this healing, I've felt an urge to communicate my experience, to show others who are grappling with their own hardships that they're not alone. My ordeal turned into a vivid reminder of how powerful faith and prayer can be. We often overlook the bigger picture. It reshaped my recovery from merely battling personal challenges into a meaningful journey of spiritual awakening and self-growth. As I recount my story today, I feel an overwhelming sense of gratitude. And honestly, there's a bit of urgency in my heart about what lies ahead. Reflecting on everything from that near-fatal incident to those haunting glimpses of what lies beyond, I've come to understand that these encounters weren't just for me. I believe I've been chosen to convey an important message and a warning for the future. At the core of what I want to say is a message of hope. No matter how tough life's circumstances become, there's always a glimmer of light waiting for you. My own life is proof of this truth. I was once at death's doorstep, shattered in ways I thought were beyond repair. Yet here I am today, not just alive, but changed in ways that I couldn't have foreseen. Pain and suffering, no matter how intense, often push us towards spiritual awakening. It's during those dark hours that we can tap into inner strength and connect with something much larger than ourselves. But alongside this hopeful insight, there's a serious concern I feel compelled to share. The visions I experienced during my near-death experience illuminated a forthcoming phase of significant change and trials. October this year marks the onset of events that are going to challenge humanity on a scale like never before. Brace yourselves. Natural disasters of monumental proportions seem to be on the horizon. Earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, and tsunamis. The planet appears to be gearing up for a tumultuous transformation that we all need to reckon with. Let's take a moment to reflect on the changes happening in our world. Rather than viewing these shifts as punishments or disastrous events, think of them as crucial steps in a natural evolution. It's almost like our planet is in labor, getting ready to enter a new chapter in its existence. Now, I'm not here to spread fear, far from it. My goal is to inspire you to prepare. But I'm not just talking about stocking up on supplies. It's more about nurturing our spiritual sides. We're going to need inner strength, a kind of spiritual resilience that many have yet to tap into fully. It's essential for us to start building stronger ties with one another and with nature. The systems we've relied on for so long could wobble or even crumble, and it's our unity and compassion that will see us through these upcoming trials. I genuinely urge anyone who encounters this message to dig deep within themselves. Find that connection with something greater, whatever that may look like for you. It doesn't matter what path you choose. What truly counts is developing a genuine and personal faith that can guide you through tough times. And while you're on this journey, keep your eyes peeled for the messages nature is sending our way. We need to relearn how to interpret those signs. Showing kindness is equally important, not just to our fellow humans, but to every living creature. It's in recognizing our interconnectedness that we find our best strength and hope for what lies ahead. I get that this message might feel unsettling or even hard to swallow for some of you. I totally understand the skepticism. I would have shared the same doubts before my own life-changing experiences. But I encourage you to stay open-minded and open-hearted. What lies ahead will challenge us to broaden our perceptions of what's possible and what's genuine. Keep in mind that the darkness we encounter isn't the end. It's merely the prelude to a brighter dawn. The struggles we face can pave the way for evolution, not just personally, but collectively as a species. We have a chance to come out on the other side of this turmoil with a renewed sense of our place in the vast universe and a deeper appreciation for all forms of life. My own path, from times of hopelessness to moments of joy, from suffering to healing, from ignorance to understanding, is a reflection of what's possible for all of humanity. Just as I uncovered strength and meaning in my own trials, I believe that we, as a worldwide community, can do the same together. As we gear up for what lies ahead, keep this in mind. You're more resilient than you might realize. The light I've encountered throughout my journey isn't just mine. It exists within every one of you, just waiting to be discovered. Let's nurture our compassion, strengthen our connections with one another, and deepen our relationship with the world around us. It's really vital. And remember, even when the night feels overwhelming, morning will always break. We are standing on the brink of a new chapter, and united, we can tackle whatever comes our way. If you found my heartfelt sharing meaningful, I'd truly appreciate it if you could give it a thumbs up, share your thoughts in the comments, and consider subscribing to the channel. Don't forget to hit that notification bell so you can catch all the upcoming videos and help us share this message with even more people. Until we meet again.